fans. Surprised if he survives this. And the way he was talking was almost like someone who knows what is coming, was fairly sort of controlled, perhaps had made his peace with it. But, we slightly went through this with Ten Hag before the cup final of, when was it, last year, when actually on the day of the game and in the 24 hours leading up to it, basically everyone said he's off. And then he got given, 200 million quid in the summer and wasted that. And then Manchester United eventually made the right decision and offloaded him. So, look, you can never tell. But I think your point is right. The silence from the board and the noise from the fans is just too much. How much do we know the players are on side? They don't always look fully committed to the tactics. But look, the truth is out on the pitch, and he may go out in style. That's one of the issues when you do write certain pieces. You always have to give yourself a get out just in case he does turn things on its head and wins tomorrow night.
Let's have a look at the front of the Times, which looks ahead to the game itself. And obviously this has maybe just taken a little bit of the focus away from the match. But from a Manchester United perspective, John, how much do they need this, and Ruben Amorim? Because there's a piece in the Times from Paul Hurst that says, look, even if he doesn't win tomorrow, he'll still be back with 100 million quid or more over the course of the summer. Decent working relationship with Sir Jim Ratcliffe, and that he will be given the chance to turn this mess around.
Yeah, Paul's piece he's really well informed on Man United. He's a really good Manchester man, and he provides a real sort of kind of insight and loads of anecdotes about their relationship. Even telling each other to kind of sort of go forth and multiply on the sort of kind of what in WhatsApp groups. Really, it's quite amusing, and basically it's sort of kind of, it tells a story of perhaps a manager and a sort of kind of part owner of a football club basically getting on well enough to kind of have that sort of exchange and understanding of where they're going. Yeah, look, I think it's interesting, isn't it? Because who's the bigger winner out of this final? I think for Tottenham, it would be their first trophy in 17 years. That would be their massive takeaway from it. For Manchester United, I think it's much more about getting into the Champions League. They couldn't really sort of parade that as the greatest European trophy they've ever won. Let's be honest here. But I think as a boost for a football club to rebuild, and my word, do they need to rebuild? This is massive for Amorim and his future and the future of Manchester United. So I think there's almost two different prizes at stake, really, sort of kind of the end game for the managers. But Paul Hurst, really reporting it, laying it on the line there, is saying there's absolutely no chance, come what may, happens in that Amorim will be going, and he trusts his players. He's got the board's faith, and he is really sort of kind of trying to build and grow from there. So I think it'll be really interesting to see. Really, I like that back page, your back page. I must say, I think the clown stuff is so good as a sports editor. I'll be going down that route, but I can see that there's two sides to this wonderful Judgment Day. It's all English final, so that also sums it up nicely, of course.
Yeah, Henry, John says Judgment Day there. The back of the Guardian go with all or nothing. And then just at the top of Jonathan Wilson's piece is the Premier League's 16th and 17th best teams meeting what could be English football's most valuable game. One of these strugglers will reach the Champions League. Now, for the fans who are out in Bilbao, it's about lifting the trophy. But when we touch on that around £100 million that Ruben Amorim might have to spend in 2025, that doesn't get you very far. The riches that come with the Champions League might well allow Amorim to regenerate his squad as much as he feels he needs to.
Yeah, we have to remember this is a manager who came in mid-season. He hasn't been given a pre-season. He's only had sort of an element of a transfer window, a January transfer window, which doesn't always produce good gems, although Aston Villa did well with it this year. So absolutely, he needs that. I mean, Paul Hurst's piece, as Crossy says, is a fascinating piece. And the bit that really fascinated me was that he's going to be given 100 million quid. I mean, if you look at that Manchester United squad, it needs more than 100 million quid. So say that 65 million pounds on a striker, then you've got 35 million pounds to chase around to find a goalkeeper, another centre half, probably a right wing back, maybe a central midfielder, and just get some more sort of bandages in for the medical department, because a lot of them keep getting injured. And then they've got to address other issues like like so many of the players who actually need to be eased out. What is Casemiro's future? He suddenly started sort of playing well again. Obviously, Marcus Rashford is leaving, but where does he go? And will it be another loan period? Then I'll have to sort of pay some of his wages. So that £100 million, as you quite rightly point out, and it's a crazy thing to say, but these are football economics, doesn't go that far. Particularly when you're Manchester United, because people tend to overcharge. Maybe they need Dougie Freedman, who's done such a fantastic job at Crystal Palace with some of his purchases. But they need to buy young, they need to buy hungry, and they need to buy 3 or 4 players. And £100 million, good luck with that.
But that is actually part of the point, John, is that I suspect that Dougie Freedman is quite happy where he is. But for the likes of a Jason Wilcox or an Omar Barada, it is about them as much as it's about Amorim. That, as Henry said, you have to find takers for Marcus Rashford, for Anthony, for whether Chelsea want to pay the money or give Jadon Sancho back. That part of it is as important as finding the right players to bring in as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Listen, there's 2 sides to a technical director or a sporting director's job, and that is basically recruitment, but also being able to kind of manage and offload and get good deals in. And it just feels as if Manchester United are almost, chasing their tail constantly. I mean, Rasmus Højlund, I just think is a great case in point. A lot of money, it was 60 million quid plus, I think. And then basically there's been flashes. So I don't want to completely and utterly sort of write him off. And I'm sure that there's a player there. But Man United, and developing a young striker talent isn't the place to do it. It's just not. You need a proven goal scorer to kind of knock the goals in for a club that, wants to be and strives to be one of the best clubs in the world. And you can't just kind of thrust him in and hope it works out in a couple of months' time. So what do they do with that? You can't then, expect, I'm afraid, to sort of offload him this summer and get your money back. And it's, do they what do they do with that? There's so many answers and so many difficult sort of dilemmas in front. And I just think, yeah, there will, if they're given £100 million, and that's kind of, clear money, if you like, and then anything else that they bring in can be spent as well. Well, maybe they can sort of kind of, stretch to another player, but there's not enough talent there, I don't think, to be able to offload and manage the squad and get in replacements and kind of reshuffle. Honestly, I did the Chelsea Man United game on Friday night and they looked like an absolute rabble. There's no direction. There's no actual direction for the team and where they're going with it. I hate Amorim for the way that he's sort of kind of wedded to this plan, this tactical formation, 3 at the back. So if you haven't got the players to play that system, it's a real weakness in your management and coaching setup if you then can't change and adapt. And I'm afraid week in, week out, that is a weakness that is being exposed by United. They haven't got the players to make the system work, so you have to get a new set of players, and that's not going to happen this summer.
Gents, thank you very much for the moment. We will take a quick break. Lots of work for Manchester United to do in the transfer market. Good news is Kevin De Bruyne is available on a free. That's probably asking a little bit much, but he said his Etihad goodbyes with a big miss, but at least it was a victory over Bournemouth to take City closer to the Champions League next season.
Farewell from the Etihad, as you say, to Kevin De Bruyne as he went, because he's not only been a legend for Manchester City, he's been a fantastic ambassador, servant and player for the whole of Premier League. And Crossy and I have been very privileged to cover what he's done.
I mean, that is part of the question as to what next, John, as to whether we might see him back at the Etihad just in a different shirt.
Yeah, he's hinted recently, hasn't he? I mean, it's quite interesting recently because he's obviously become a little bit more open and candid, and maybe he is kind of almost putting himself out there for his next contract in his next club. And he's made it very clear, actually, in the last couple of weeks, hasn't he, that he would welcome and relish another. He certainly hasn't shut the door on another opportunity sort of popping up in the Premier League, and he thinks that he can play at the highest level. And you see, performances, barring that spectacular miss on the pitch, and you have to understand why. And also, it's the respect, isn't it? Honestly, tonight I was watching the Sky's coverage on it, and it absolutely blew my mind. There are ways to say goodbye, and City did it with such class and such absolutely magnificent timing. The tributes were magnificent. the goodbyes, the plaudits from his former teammates. You've got the chairman there, you've got everyone sort of kind of chiming in, from Vincent Kompany to Sergio Aguero, Zabaleta sort of kind of almost sparking the song in recognition of De Bruyne, and the whole stadium were there. It was kind of, the lights dropped, and it was absolutely fantastic. What a show. I honestly thought that Man City really did themselves proud. I thought that was a brilliant effort from the football club to honour one of their true greats, if not their greatest. And I just thought there's ways of saying goodbye, and I thought that they absolutely did it brilliantly. You could almost see the emotion in Pep Guardiola, couldn't you? He was really struggling to take it all in, and I just thought that said it all. It must be. Look at that, tears down his cheek. Look at that. It brings him to emotion there, to see the players that are sort of kind of paying tribute. He was looking up in absolute wonder. And you see nights like this, and you wonder whether they've made the right decision. Listen, it's their choice to move on. De Bruyne clearly wanted to stay a little bit longer, but what a way to say goodbye. I thought it was absolutely one of the best things I've ever seen, to say goodbye to a true great. Fabulous for City. Brilliant.
As you said, Henry, in certain ways, Kevin De Bruyne is irreplaceable, but the regeneration started in January. Gonzalez, Marmoush, Kusanov all came in. Listen, they're still not perfect. We saw that in the FA Cup final against Palace the weekend. How many more players do you think Pep Guardiola will want to get them back in and around Liverpool and Arsenal next season, or Liverpool in particular?
It's a good question. You could argue they haven't really fully replaced Julian Alvarez. I mean, Marmoush has sort of come in and he's sort of settling and he's actually doing well. And it's quite interesting, at the end of the game, Guardiola and Marmoush had quite a long conversation, which initially looked sort of tactical. You know what Pep's like after games. He's always sort of basically having another sort of training session with a player out there on the pitch. So, yeah, I mean, they've got to sort Jack Grealish's future out. He came on for, sort of 3 or 4 minutes, which I thought was, a little bit harsh for someone who, did help them to the treble, a couple of years ago. So, look, there are issues they've got to sort out wide, but Nico Gonzalez looks fantastic, took his goal well. And they've got Rodri back, who is their most important player. And I think he shields that back four, so that gives them some strength. But also, you don't necessarily have to spend the whole time. Give the academy kids a chance. McAtee, whether he's elite level, we'll wait and see. But I think O'Reilly is, Rico Lewis is as well. So you can look for some of the answers for then. But I think De Bruyne will be back, but I think he's going to be a very good manager in the future.
We have got 20 seconds to go, so only one way to finish. Who wins it tomorrow? Henry first.
Oh, I think Spurs might. Crazy as it seems. And then Ange loses his job and Ruben loses and keeps his.
John?
I've backed Tottenham in the paper tomorrow, and I think Tottenham will win it, and I think it'll be a great fairy tale and a great ending for Postecoglou. What a story that would be.
Gentlemen, thank you very much indeed for your